So, for 30 years, a serial killer terrorized Wichita, Kansas, sending taunting letters to police and the media, signing them BTK. Bind, torture, kill. He was a ghost, untraceable, untouchable. Then in 2005, after decades of silence, he made contact again. He sent police a floppy disk with a simple question: "Can you trace this?" The answer was yes, and it led straight to Dennis Rader, a church president, Boy Scout leader, and devoted family man. This is the story of how a serial killer's own ego finally caught him. Between 1974 and 1991, someone was hunting people in Wichita, Kansas. The killer didn't just murder, he terrorized. He would break into homes, tie up entire families, and kill them one by one. His first attack came in January 1974, when he murdered 4 members of the Otero family, including 2 children. The crime scene was brutal and methodical. He had planned everything. But what made this killer different was what came next. He started communicating. In October 1974, he left a letter in a book at the Wichita Public Library, describing the Otero murders in detail and giving himself a name: BTK. Bind them, torture them, kill them. Over the next 17 years, he would kill at least 6 more people, and after each murder, he would taunt the police. He sent letters to newspapers. He called TV stations. He even sent puzzles and poems describing his crimes. Then, in 1991, after killing his 10th known victim, Dolores Davis, BTK went silent. Completely silent. For 13 years, nothing. No letters, no calls, no murders that police could link to him. Investigators assumed he was dead, in prison for something else, or had simply stopped. The case went cold. But BTK wasn't gone. He was living in plain sight in Park City, a suburb of Wichita. His name was Dennis Rader. He was married with 2 children. He was a compliance officer for the city, the kind of guy who measured people's grass and wrote citations for unkept yards. He was president of his church council. He was a Cub Scout leader. His neighbors described him as helpful, maybe a little annoying with his rule enforcement, but otherwise totally normal. No one suspected him of anything. Inside, though, Dennis Rader was obsessed with his own legend. He kept detailed records of his crimes, photographs, drawings, written fantasies. He followed news coverage religiously, and by 2004, he was furious. A book had been published about the BTK case, and Rader felt it didn't give him enough credit. His ego couldn't take it. So after 13 years of silence, BTK decided to remind Wichita that he was still out there. In March 2004, the Wichita Eagle newspaper received a letter containing crime scene photos from a 1986 murder that had never been connected to BTK. The message was clear: "I'm back." Over the next year, Rader sent 11 more communications to police and media. He sent word puzzles. He sent a doll bound and tortured like his victims. He sent jewelry taken from victims as proof. And with each communication, he grew bolder and sloppier. The police task force, led by Lieutenant Ken Landwehr, had been revived. They knew BTK was local. His knowledge of Wichita was too detailed. They knew he was white, probably middle-aged, and likely worked a job that gave him access to people's homes. But they still had no DNA, no fingerprints that matched anyone in the system, and no clear way to identify him. So they did something risky. They started communicating back. In one of his letters, BTK asked a question. He wanted to know if police could trace a floppy disk if he sent one. He suggested they could communicate through an ad in the Wichita Eagle. 1 checkmark for yes, 2 for no. Lieutenant Landwehr placed an ad in the paper. 1 checkmark. The message: "No, you can send a floppy disk. It will be safe." It was a lie. On February 16, 2005, a purple floppy disk was found at a Home Depot. On it was a document titled Test ARTF. When investigators opened the file's metadata, they found something BTK had missed. The document had been created by someone named Dennis, and it was last saved at an organization called Christ Lutheran Church. A quick internet search revealed that Dennis Rader was the president of Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. Police pulled up Dennis Rader's information. He fit the profile perfectly. White male, late 50s, worked for the city, lived in the area during all the murders. They needed DNA to confirm it, so they got creative. Rader's daughter had recently had a medical procedure at Kansas State University. Police obtained a warrant for her medical records and her DNA. It was a familial match to DNA found under the fingernails of BTK victim, Vicki Wegerle. They had him. On February 25, 2005, just 9 days after the floppy disk was recovered, police arrested Dennis Rader while he was driving home from work. He didn't resist. In fact, according to detectives, he seemed almost relieved. During interrogation, Rader was calm, cooperative, and weirdly proud. He walked investigators through each murder in chilling detail, correcting them when they got facts wrong. He showed no remorse. He explained his crimes like someone describing a hobby. When asked about the floppy disk, Rader seemed genuinely confused. "You said it would be safe," he told detectives. He actually believed they had promised not to trace it. His arrogance had blinded him completely. The man who had evaded capture for 30 years was caught because he trusted the police and didn't understand basic computer forensics. At his trial, Rader pled guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. Kansas had no death penalty at the time, so he was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences, a minimum of 175 years in prison. During his sentencing hearing, he gave long, detailed descriptions of each murder, referring to himself in the third person and calling his urge to kill Factor X. Families of the victims sat in the courtroom, forced to listen to him describe how he had killed their loved ones. He showed no emotion. Dennis Rader is currently serving his sentence at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. He will never be eligible for parole. The man who terrorized a city for 3 decades, who thought he was smarter than everyone, was brought down by his own ego and a floppy disk. So remember, if a serial killer ever asks you if you can trace something, the answer is always yes. BTK learned that the hard way. If you found this case as unbelievable as I did, hit that subscribe button for more true crime stories. And let me know in the comments, what do you think drove Dennis Rader to break his 13-year silence? Was it ego, or was it something else? Thanks for watching.